It was a cold, rainy night when I first heard the noises coming from our basement. My parents were out at a party, leaving me home alone to work on a school project. I had just settled in at the kitchen table with my books and laptop when a loud thump made me jump. It sounded like it was coming from below me. Our house was old, so I figured maybe a pipe had come loose or something. I tried to ignore it and focus on my homework. A few minutes later, I heard it again. A scraping, shuffling noise that seemed to move across the basement floor. It was definitely not normal house sounds. I stared wide-eyed at the basement door, debating whether to investigate. Curiosity overcame my nerves, so I crept to the door and slowly turned the knob. A rush of musty air billowed up the stairs as I peered down into the darkness. I fumbled for the light switch, but nothing happened when I flipped it. Heart pounding, I took a few tentative steps down, straining my eyes to see through the blackness. The noises had stopped, which somehow made it even creepier. About halfway down, the hairs on my neck stood up as a rank animal smell hit my nose. Something was down there, and it wasn't a pipe. I spun around to retreat back up the stairs when a guttural growl froze me in my tracks. Yellow eyes appeared in the darkness, reflecting the bit of light from the open basement door. The thing crouched in the corner was no stray dog. It was too big, and the eyes were all wrong. This was something feral and dangerous. Fear jolted through me as the creature snarled. I scrambled up the remaining stairs on all fours, slamming the door shut behind me. My heart was racing as I pushed a chair under the knob. The thing threw itself against the door, making it shudder violently. All I could do was back away, terrified it would break through. Just when I thought the door would give way, I heard the wail of a police siren approaching. In an instant, the banging stopped, and the basement went quiet. I sagged to the floor, relief washing over me. When the police searched the basement minutes later, there was no sign of the creature, but I'll never forget those yellow eyes staring up from the darkness. Whatever was down there is forever burned into my memory as the basement lurker. The thunder's barking jolted me awake. In the darkness, I could make out the blurry shapes of our dogs, scrambling frantically at the closed bedroom door. Beside me, my husband Tom was somehow still fast asleep, faintly snoring. "Tom, wake up," I hissed, jostling his shoulder. He jerked awake with a snort. What is it?" "The dogs are going crazy. I think there's someone outside." We strained our ears. Through the door, we could hear the dogs' muffled barks morphing into vicious growling. The hair on my arms prickled. Someone was out there. I hurriedly threw on my robe and slippers, while Tom fumbled to put on his glasses. Our eyes met, and I saw my own anxiety reflected in Tom's furrowed brow. We crept to the top of the stairs. With every step, the boards creaked under our feet. At the bottom, I paused, my heart hammering. Tom gave my hand a reassuring squeeze. I drew a shaky breath and turned the knob of the back door. As soon as it opened a crack, our 2 German shepherds shoved past us into the darkness, still bristling and snapping. Cautiously, I stepped out onto the porch, the cold night air raising goosebumps on my skin. I peered out towards the tree line, looking for any shifting shadows. Tom followed close behind, gripping the bat he kept by the closet. Suddenly, a face materialized at the kitchen window, pale and ghostly. The man's dark eyes locked onto mine, his expression unreadable. I stumbled back with a gasp. By the time Tom spun around, the figure had vanished. He was right there, I gasped, pointing a trembling finger. Tom's jaw hardened. "Stay here," he ordered gruffly, stepping off the porch into the wet grass. I huddled in the doorway, clutching my robe tightly around myself. The dogs had disappeared around the side of the house, though I could hear them baying wildly somewhere in the distance. An owl hooted, its cry echoing eerily through the trees. After tense minutes, Tom returned, empty-handed. Together, we searched the perimeter of the house but found no trace of the intruder. For the rest of that sleepless night, the faintest creak or rustle had me peering out into the impenetrable darkness, wondering if unseen eyes were watching us even now. It was a chilly October evening when I decided to make the solo drive from my college dorm back home to celebrate my mom's birthday. With classes done for the week, I packed up my sedan and headed out on the highway as the sun began to set. About an hour into the trip, I noticed a shadowy figure up ahead frantically waving their arm on the side of the road. As I slowly approached, I could make out a disheveled man in tattered clothing staggering along the ditch trying to flag down a ride. My first instinct was to speed past him, but something made me tap my brakes. Taking in the sight of his weathered face and overstuffed hiking backpack, I felt a pang of compassion. Against my better judgment, I pulled over. The man rushed over and climbed into the passenger seat, reeking of body odor and stale cigarettes. "Thank you. Thank you so much," he rasped, in a voice that sounded like worn-out sandpaper. Up close, I could see his piercing blue eyes were bloodshot with dark circles underneath. His scraggly salt and pepper beard and overgrown hair suggested he had been traveling on the road for quite a while. "Name's Walter," he muttered, coughing a bit as he secured his backpack between his feet. I told him my name and asked where he was heading. "Just the next town over. Going to see my daughter and new grandbaby," he said with the hint of a smile. We drove for a while, making small talk about his family. Despite his gruff appearance, Walter seemed kind. But then his tone suddenly shifted. He turned to me with a grave look in his eyes. "Son, listen close now. Whatever you do, do not take the Blackwell Tunnel exit up ahead. Keep driving straight through to the next town, you hear?" I felt a chill down my spine and glanced uneasily at the approaching exit for Blackwell Tunnel. Seeing my hesitation, Walter doubled down. "I'm serious now. Avoid that tunnel at all costs. Take my word for it and stay on the highway." His stern instructions seemed bizarre and cryptic, but something about the intensity in his voice told me to trust him. I kept the car straight and drove past the Blackwell exit, my hands gripping the wheel a bit tighter. Walter looked relieved and leaned back in his seat. We didn't exchange another word until I dropped him off at the next rest stop. As he climbed out of the car, he left me with one final warning that I'll never forget. Stick to the light, avoid the dark. I watched him disappear into the night, left wondering what dangers lurked within that tunnel. All I know is I'm grateful. I took that strange hitchhiker's advice and stayed in the light.